too. Yeah. I hear you just fine, my friend. Sure. Yep. Okay, I can say future eighth. Yep. Yeah. Okay, so after he talks, I'm going to go into NASB and then talk about it after I'm re-teed about the other two? Okay, so I should just pick from... Okay, now is Jeff going to lead me into NASB, or am I just going to pick it up from Riley? Okay, cool. Yep. Sure, yep, I can keep it quick and simple. That's easy. No problem, good. Go ahead.
So I guess Diener worked with Tibbs over at ESPN.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. It's amazing. There's ESPN people everywhere.
Right. Well, Diener met his wife there.
Oh, did he really?
She was a producer there.
Oh, I didn't know that. I met that guy. Who was the guy yesterday that was here? The CI guy, is like the head guy over there. He was in for the day.
Did he have gray hair?
I don't know. He was
You're talking about Adam or Crowley?
Crowley, I think was his
Yes,
name.
the khakis. So his wife is on an LA talk show.
That's what he said. Yeah, he said his wife's out there and he commutes back and forth because of that.
I think it's like Access Hollywood. Or,
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Who's that? What's his name? All the women.
They've become the best of the best. Now they wait to hear their names. Who will be drafted and when? By which team? Our ACC Live Draft Special is next.
How about the show that this kid has put on today?
Bernard breaks loose. He's gone.
Turns on the jet. He's going to go all the way for 6.
Pressure. Sack. Took down by Bjorn.
In stride of the 10 of the 5. Heather's Orange into the end zone. Touchdown.
It's good to be back in the saddle. We have not done an ACC Live since the NCAA tournament. This is ACC Live, the football draft special on the ACC Digital Network, brought to you by Ruby Tuesday. I'm Jeff Fischel, and Riley Skinner's with me. Riley's back.
I've been itching. I felt lost again.
Cannot talk football without him. Riley, a great crop of ACC stars heading into the NFL draft this year. We could see, well, how many could we see taken off the board Thursday night?
I think this is a big year for the ACC, especially in the first round. I think if things go well, you could see 6, potentially 7 ACC guys go on the first day, and they're not a lot in the sexy positions. I mean, it's going to be a good year for the big uglies, and the offensive and defensive line, I think, are where the main crop of these first-round guys are. But you could see 6 or 7 altogether if things go well on the first day.
Now, also joining us for this draft preview show, Russ Lande from Junior Scouting and the Scouting Director for National Football Post from Chicago. Russ, there's one name that's kind of surprising we could see early on from the ACC, right?
No doubt. I think when you look at Tank Carradine, injured his knee against Florida. He just had his pro day in the last week, and he ran very well. He worked out well. I think NFL teams are now considering him in that top 10 to 12 picks, which would have been unheard of when you heard he blew out his knee nearly 3 months ago.
This is really a question of risk. A guy who tears his ACL the last regular season game of the season.
It is risky. I mean, I will say, if you tear your ACL in December and you're having that kind of pro day in April, it shows what kind of determination, what kind of work ethic you have. So I think his stock's just going to continue to rise. But you're right, it does come down to, with such a recent injury, how is he going to perform, at the start of the NFL season? So I think a lot of teams are going to take that into consideration, but he couldn't have done anything better for himself than have a workout like he did.
12 teams were at that workout. 135 days after an ACL surgery, he runs a 4.75. So Russ, knowing all that, who is willing to take that chance?
I think there's a lot of teams willing to take the chance because his tape was so impressive. Now they feel comfortable with the knee. I think you have to look at Detroit at 5 as a consideration. If Ezekiel Ansah is gone, I think they will consider Carradine. I think you also have to look strongly at the New York Jets. They need outside pass rush help. I think they like Barkevious Mingo, but I think they may be leaning towards a guy like Carradine. He's a bigger, stronger guy than Mingo, and I think he could set the edge a little bit better in the Jets' 3-4 defense.
Carradine, 11 sacks in 2012. And Riley, it's inevitable to compare him to his bookend, Bjorn Werner. They were both fantastic, and they both could go early.
They are. I mean, it's unbelievable they have the two good of players on both ends on the same draft class. But Bjorn Werner's a guy who I don't think there's really any question marks about. He has proved what he can do, the player of the year in the ACC on defense last year. But his athleticism at his size, at almost 270 pounds, the way he can contort his body, he can dip under tackles. He's got an explosive get-off on the pass rush, and he makes plays, when the game's on the line and when they need him to step up. And he's a guy that reminds me a lot of Chris Long, a guy I played against. They've got that just relentless motor, passion, and love for the game, and that's what Bjorn Werner brings. I think there's just such a high ceiling for Bjorn Werner. He hasn't been in the States very long. He's got good coaching, but he's leaving early, so he hasn't had, Pop Warner years to grow as a defensive player. So he gets under the tutelage of a defensive end, a defensive line coach. There's no telling what he's going to do. I think he's going to have a huge NFL career, potentially be a Pro Bowler down the road.
Russ, your most recent mock draft, you had him number 5.
Yeah, and I think when you look at Werner, he's one of, to me, the safer picks. And you hate to say that because none of these guys are sure things. But Werner is an underrated athlete. He had a great pro day where he really showed that he is an elite athlete. He's got great hand use. He's powerful at the point of attack. And I think what's impressive about him is he's not only an elite pass rusher, but he's a guy that dominates run blockers, gets rid of them, and makes tackles. I think he's going to be an instant starter, and I loved Riley's comparison of Chris Long. I agree with that. He's going to be a guy that's going to be a 10 to 12-year starter, many-time Pro Bowler, in my opinion.
All right, Russ, these teams thinking about taking Carradine or Werner, what separates the two?
Well, I think when you look at him, I think Werner is a more polished product. I think Carradine is a guy with a little bit more upside and potential, but there's more risk involved. He's a one-year starter who blew out his knee at the end of the season. So if you're a GM, you have to have a lot of courage to take him over a guy like Werner, who is pretty much ready to plug and play, as the NFL teams like to call it.
So one of these guys could be the first ACC player taken in the draft. We're asking you, who's going to be that first guy in the ACC draft to go Thursday night? Tweet us at the ACCDN with your answer. We will read some of your tweets later in the show. Werner, one of the 4 Seminoles to be invited by the NFL to attend the draft. Also, E.J. Manuel, Menelik Watson, Xavier Rhodes, the only other ACC player, North Carolina's big offensive guard, Jonathan Cooper. Now, hopefully none of them have one of those Aaron Rodgers excruciating waits, right, waiting for their name to be called. Of course, they'd love to have the kind of career Aaron Rodgers has had. But let's talk about Cooper. Several mock drafts, Riley, I've seen, they like Cooper to be that first guy off the board. He was clearly the best offensive lineman in the ACC in 2012.
Hands down, without a doubt. I mean, a 4-year starter, the durability and the dependability that Jonathan Cooper is showing NFL scouts is what is going to make them fall in love with him. And the athleticism at over 300 pounds, his first step, his quickness off the football is unlike any other in the draft, in my opinion. This is a guy that can quickly get to that second level of defenses in the run game. He engages with linebackers. He's got the athleticism to stay within linebackers and almost defensive backs when he gets down the road. And he reminds me a lot of Rodney Hudson, a guy that played at Florida State. Again, a 4-year starter, a guy that's versatile. I mean, you look at Jonathan Cooper, he played center and he played guard, so you know he's got the athleticism to fill spots where needed on an NFL line. But at the end of the day, he's a guard through and through. He's got the durability. He's got the strength and feet to be one of the good ones for a long time.
Russ, where do you think he goes?
You know, I agree with Riley that this guy's one of the best guards in the country. He's an elite athlete. I think, unfortunately, guards fall on draft day. So I think despite his being a top 10 or 15 talent, he's probably going to go below 15, somewhere between 15 and 32 in the first round. Very gifted kid, just guards don't have as much value as offensive tackles or pass rushers.
Now, the ACC doesn't get credit always for having great linemen, but look where we've started the show. 2 defensive end, an offensive guard, and then there's Cooper's teammate, Riley, another 300-pounder, Sylvester Williams. He was great.
I mean, again, a big year for the big uglies. I mean, Sylvester Williams, a guy at North Carolina, that he came in and he took advantage of an opportunity. I mean, Sylvester Williams, he had an interesting road to college. He quit football after high school, then went to a junior college and transferred. But when he got to North Carolina, he showed what kind of, the strength he has in the lower body. He's a wide body that can fill gaps and be a tremendous run stopper and wreak havoc in the backfield against offensive linemen. He's got a very surprisingly quick step off the ball. I think he reads the snap count well, but he's got really good hands is what I like. He's got a great swim move, fast, quick hands to create space between those offensive linemen, and he reminds me a lot of Jaguars defensive tackle Terrence Knight. And Terrence Knight was he wasn't very highly recruited. He went to Temple, then made his way to the league, and every time an opportunity presented itself, he took advantage and he made the best of that opportunity, and that's exactly what I feel Sylvester Williams has done. He's not a name everybody knows, but he's a guy that can sneak up maybe late in the first round and make his name on a roster.
Russ, you're a believer, I know.
Oh, there's no question. I mean, I keep talking to teams, and a number of teams have him the #1 interior defensive lineman in the draft. He's right there with Starlu Talele, with Sharif Floyd on most teams' board as a premier prospect, because there are very few guys that are 310, 320 pounds who can dominate blockers at the point of attack, but also have the explosiveness off the ball to get backfield penetration and the speed to chase down the ball in pursuit. I think this guy is a top 10 or 12 pick with potential to be in that top 5 or 6 if a team likes him over star. This guy's a special football player.
Wow. Now, we've talked a lot about the big guys. I joked about it. Let's move to the pretty boys.
Like about time. Skinner. I mean, the show needs something. Come on.
Quarterbacks. All time, the ACC has had 6 QBs taken in the first round. 2 years ago, Florida State's Christian Ponder. We have Matty Ice, Phillip Rivers. In 1979, Clemson's Steve Fuller. He won a Super Bowl with the Bears as a backup quarterback to Jim McMahon. Roman Gabriel and Norm Snead go way back. Both ended up being great pros. Both played in 4 Pro Bowls. Now, could E.J. Manuel be number 7? He's certainly confident.
I think, if I were in this position and I didn't feel like I was the best guy coming out this year, I'd be in the wrong place. I'd be trying out for the wrong job. I think everybody in this league has been the best in their respective leagues or whatever they've done in college, and that's why you made it to the NFL. So I think you have to exude confidence, and I think teams respect that and not necessarily have false confidence, but also show it. And in your presentation, I think people can tell you if you're a confident guy within minutes of meeting you. I'm hearing some really good things. Nobody is necessarily going to come out and say, hey, we're going to take you here at this pick. And even if they did, I wouldn't believe them because anything can change, minutes before your pick or minutes before the draft. Trades, all kind of things can happen. So I do see myself going fairly high. It's just a matter of one of those teams that's fallen in love with me. And I think it's about 3 or 4 of them who have, so I think one of them will go ahead and pull the trigger on Thursday.
That was EJ talking to us, the two of us last week in our Google Hangout. We'll talk NFL Draft tomorrow on another Google Hangout at noon here on the ACC Digital Network, brought to you by Ruby Tuesday. Riley, he says teams have fallen in love with him. He's certainly a great leader. He put up solid numbers. He's a threat to both throw and run.
Well, I think when you hear that teams have fallen in love with him after meeting with him, I think a lot of it has to do with the kind of kid or man he is. I mean, at the size and strength, he's got the physical tools, he's got the arm. But what I like about it, and I've played against E.J. Manuel, I've sat down with him many a time. This is a guy, he's a cerebral mind. He knows the game of football, but he also is a great leader. I mean, anybody, coaches or players that have played with E.J. Manuel just speak the world of him, the kind of guy he is in the locker room, in the huddle. And I think NFL teams are realizing that it's not always going to be about being 6'5", although he is got the height. But, they've gambled on some guys that have the potential at the quarterback position, but not the leadership qualities and the character qualities, and it's backfired. And I think E.J. Manuel, luckily for him, possesses both of those. So I would not be surprised if he sneaks into that first round.
Another ACC quarterback from Virginia, actually, who should go early, Mike Glennon. Riley, they're very different, but both have given teams plenty of reasons to say they could be a franchise quarterback.
These are completely different players. I mean, E.J. Manuel's, he can make plays with his feet. Mike Glennon, not so much, but he's got the arm. I don't really see anybody else in the draft have this kind of arm strength. He can make every throw in an NFL playbook from the skinny post from the 25-yard out to the opposite sideline. And he throws the ball a lot in college, so I think he can be able to handle a pro-style offense, really handle kind of whatever playbook that he gets. And he just got to get mobile in the pocket enough to avoid some of those NFL-type defensive ends, because that's the only thing I think teams are wondering is, with his immobility, how can he handle those NFL defense? But he's got the arm to do whatever you want in terms of throwing the football.
No doubt about it. A lot of guys have compared him to Joe Flacco. Flacco's got a gun for sure.
Yeah.
Russ, let's take a look at your quarterback rankings at the top of the draft. Number 1, Ryan Nassib, the quarterback for future ACC school Syracuse. Then you have Manuel, number 3, Glennon, 7. You think Duke's Sean Renfree could go as well. But really, you love Nassib, right? In fact, you have him number 1 overall.
I really do. I think Nassib is a rare talent. I think he has the best fundamentals of any quarterback in this draft. A live arm, and then when you add in the great intangibles, he's a coach's kid, he's a gym rat, he does whatever it takes to get better. I think he's going to be a high-level quarterback very quickly in his NFL career.
Let's go through the couple of guys Riley and I were just talking about. First, E.J. Manuel. What do you think of him, and where do you think he goes?
I like Manuel a lot. I think he's got a big league arm. He gets rid of the ball very quickly. He has a good feel for what's going on defensively. I would just like to see him be a little bit more aggressive when he throws the ball, stride into his throws more. I think he's probably going to be a late first or a high second rounder. I think when you look at Mike Glennon, you see a guy that, yes, he's limited in terms of his ability to make plays with his feet, but he's got the arm to make every throw. And when I watch him, actually, I get reminded a lot of Matt Ryan, a guy who makes a lot of plays, but will also make some mistakes by forcing some passes. I think Glennon's probably going to be a second-round choice.
All right, also Sean Renfree, the other name we mentioned. He's making headlines off the field. We will talk about him more on Friday. Let's talk about what he's doing off the field. This is the ACC now. Sean Renfree was given the University Scholar Athlete Award by the National Football Foundation and College Hall of Fame last night. Renfree threw for over 9,400 yards in his career, and this past season led the Blue Devils to their first bowl game in 18 years. Now we wait to find out when his name will be called at the NFL Draft. Softball last night, number 25, North Carolina came from behind and beat Georgia Tech 11-6. Constance Orr was the star. She went deep not once, twice, driving in 4 runs to help North Carolina take the series from the Yellow Jackets. The Tar Heels are now 36-16 overall, 12-6 in the ACC. That's in second behind Florida State in the conference. Georgia Tech is 7-8 in the ACC. The North Carolina men are number 1 for another week. Hey, they're 39-2 and riding a 14-game win streak. A great weekend baseball series coming up against North Carolina State, now up to number 6 in the Baseball America poll. Wolfpack also has a 14-game win streak. UVA is 5, Florida State 10, Georgia Tech and Clemson also in the top 25. Hey, in case you went to bed and missed the end of the Clippers game last night, Chris Paul hit a game winner in the final seconds to beat the Grizzlies. But as any Wake Forest fan will tell you, we've seen CP3 do that already. The exact same thing back when he was taking on North Carolina State. Watch.
And a loose right back to Paul. Here's the sprint for the finish by Paul. He does it! Chris Paul, preseason player of the year, puts one in the face of North Carolina State at the buzzer.
Great players make plays at the end of games.
Great play. Now, some may remember this is actually the same game when it looked like Paul gave Julius Hodge a little blow to the man region. Do you remember that? Wake Forest fans, I know, remember that. Anyway, Paul was taken number 4 overall in the 2005 NBA draft. We're asking you which ACC player will be taken first in the NFL draft. Tweet us at the ACCDN. And that is the ACC Now, brought to you by Ruby Tuesday. Coming up, a little ACC in the NFL draft trivia. And we haven't talked about the backs and receivers yet. Which ACC back goes first, Gio Bernard or Andre Ellington? And could Ellington's Clemson teammate Nuke Hopkins be a first-round pick? That's next on ACC Live.
Welcome to Ruby Tuesday, where we're cooking up over 15 chef-inspired selections for under $15, starting at just $9.99, creating something new for everyone. Delicious food at mouth-watering prices, and each comes with your choice of over a dozen fresh sides, including our Create-Your-Own Garden Bar. They're dishes you won't find anywhere else, cooked just the way you want with our special toppings and unique sauces. Over 15 delicious meals under $15, starting at $9.99. That's right. Welcome to Ruby Tuesday.
The ACC Digital Network, the ultimate video destination for ACC fans. Exclusive highlights, live streaming games, and original live programming, unique access to the student athletes of our time and the legendary voices of all time. Defining moments, personal stories, incredible analysis from authentic ACC sources, cutting-edge content from the leaders in the digital space. The ACC Digital Network, brought to you by Ruby Tuesday. Last year, 3 ACC players went in the first round of the NFL Draft. The first, Boston College All-American linebacker Luke Kuechly, taken 9th overall by the Carolina Panthers. All Kuechly did in his rookie season was lead the NFL in tackles with 164. North Carolina defensive end Quentin Coples was taken by the Jets with the 16th pick. He ended up leading the team with 5.5 sacks. That's a solid start. And with the final pick, first round, the New York Giants chose Virginia Tech running back David Wilson, the 2011 ACC Offensive Player of the Year. He rushed for 358 yards for the Giants, also had a 97-yard kickoff return for a touchdown. Welcome back to ACC Live, our NFL Draft Preview show here on the ACC Digital Network, brought to you by Ruby Tuesday. I'm Jeff Fischel, Riley Skinner with me, and via Skype, Russ Lande from Junior Scouting and the National Football Post. We're asking you what ACC player will be taken first. Tweet us at the ACCDN. Riley, we just saw David Wilson. This year, the ACC has 2 of the best backs in the draft. Compare Carolina's Gio Bernard and Clemson's Andre Ellington.
Well, they're both electric. I think Gio Bernard has that playmaking ability. I think he's got the edge over Andre Ellington. Just the fact that he is so good as a punt returner, as a kick returner, just in the special teams arena, but also out of the backfield. He catches the ball well, and when he's running the football, he keeps his low pad level. He's a tackle breaker. I mean, he's a short guy, but he's stocky, a lot like Maurice Jones-Drew, and he is shifty. And when he gets the space, he makes a lot of people miss, but that's what I think Andre Ellington does as well. Andre Ellington's vision, the cut angles that he takes, and his low pad level as well, I think makes him a tremendous running back. We've seen the balance that he has, spinning off tackles, putting his hand down, and breaking those long runs like against Auburn. But he's a patient runner, and when you see a running back that's patient, it kind of makes offensive scouts in the NFL salivate because they know that they're not just going to run up into the pile and get a negative yard play. They're going to follow the blocking scheme and understand what's going on when they have the football in their hand, and that's what I think Andre Ellington possesses.
Russ, Bernard, and Ellington, who goes first?
Well, I think Bernard's going to go first because I think teams view him as more of a complete back because he's a little bit bigger in terms of running between the tackles. He runs a little bit better pad level, can break more tackles. He's a very intriguing guy because he can run inside, he can get outside, and he can contribute as a third down back. I think Ellington is viewed more of a guy that is more of a third down back, guy who can get out in space and change games. And obviously they both have return ability, but I think Bernard will go first in the draft.
Yeah, and let me just add on to that. I mean, I think playing in that new Larry Fedora system showed everybody what kind of receiver Giovanni Bernard is. I mean, he caught the ball all over the place, made some tremendous catches, and I think that adds a huge amount of value when you're getting evaluated by an NFL scout, how they can use you well in the passing scheme.
He missed 2.5 games and had over 2,000 all-purpose yards. Russ, another injury question there because we know Gio's recovered from a torn ACL. Are there injury concerns with Bernard?
Well, I don't think they're major ones because he did play the 2 years since the injury. But the concern is, hey, he had the knee, he missed some games. Is he going to be able to hold up and be a durable back? And that's probably what's going to keep him from being a first-round pick. He's probably going to be a high second-round guy because there are those concerns.
Okay, the top ACC wide receiver in the draft is Ellington's teammate DeAndre Hopkins. Russ, he really emerged from Sammy Watkins' shadow in 2012, an incredible season.
Oh, this is a guy that's really impressive. I think when you watch him play, his ability to change the game when he has the ball in his hands is remarkable. He's got strong hands, catches it, gets it away quickly, and he gets up the field fast after the catch. He can run through contact. He has better speed than he gets credit for. This guy's going to be, I think, a very productive starter in the NFL who makes plays not only after the catch but within the red zone.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right when you said makes plays after the catch. That's one thing that I see that Andre Ellington does better than a lot of other people. Or DeAndre Hopkins is he makes plays after he catches the football with his feet, and he attacks the ball in the air, in traffic. And I think he's going to be I think he's going to be kind of a sleeper in terms of the wide receiver position.
Russ has him as his number 3 wide receiver on the board. Only Keenan Allen and Tavon Austin ahead of him. Some ACC great receivers could be drafted later on. Of course, Nuke Hopkins coming off a season in which he set an ACC record with 8 touchdowns. There we're seeing the list of the ACC receivers who could go. Marcus Davis, Rodney Smith, Corey Fuller, and Eric Highsmith as well. And talking about Smith, could be part of just an incredible draft class for Florida State. It is truly shaping up to be one of the Noles' best draft classes ever. One of the best has to be 1997. An amazing 4 of the first 14 picks were Seminoles. Remember the 4th overall pick. The Baltimore Ravens took linebacker Peter Boulware. He was an All-American, ACC Defensive Player of the Year his junior season. He spent his entire career in the NFL with the Ravens, winning Super Bowl 35. Another player taken in that draft from Florida State right out of the gates in the first round, offensive tackle Walter Jones. Walter Jones taken by Seattle just 2 picks later. Jones played just 1 season in Tallahassee, but he was an all-conference selection, and he played in the 97 Sugar Bowl. He then went on to a fantastic career in the NFL, 13 seasons with the Seattle Seahawks, 7-time Pro Bowl. The 12th pick, Tampa Bay took Noles running back Warrick Dunn, a 3-time All-ACC pick. He finished his college career as the school's all-time leading rusher. He was part of that 93 team that won a national title. The university retired as number 28. He's the only player in school history to rush for over 1,000 yards in 3 different seasons. In the NFL, he played for the Bucs and the Falcons as well. And then with the 14th pick, the Cincinnati Bengals selected linebacker Raynard Wilson. As a senior in 1996, he had 13 sacks and was chosen an All-American. He played 6 seasons as a Cincinnati Bengal. This year, another possible first-round Florida State pick. Great, again, can't say enough about that 97 draft class. This year, another possible first-round pick for Florida State, tackle Menelik Watson. He's a fascinating story. You probably know it. He came over from Britain, played college basketball for 2 years at Marist, then left, showed up at a California junior college, said, hey, I think I want to try football for the first time.
So one word defines athlete.
Yeah, he plays there 1 season, comes to Florida State, and now he's made himself into a first-round pick. Russ, what do teams make of him, and what's your prediction for him?
I think teams really like him because when they meet with the kid, they love his intelligence, they love his character and intangibles. Then you look at his play. He's very raw, no question, but he's an elite athlete, as good as any athlete in this draft that plays offensive line. And you see his raw power. He literally can torque guys off their feet as well as any NFL lineman. Those two things, the athleticism and strength, are what gets NFL teams enticed. I think this guy's going to end up being a top 25 pick. And while he may need to sit as a rookie to learn, I think by year 3 he's going to be a very good starting left tackle in the NFL.
And every team wants to find that next great left tackle. Another Florida State Seminole, cornerback Xavier Rhodes. He came to Tallahassee as a wide receiver. Jimbo Fisher switched him to defense wisely. Now he's a first-round pick, probably. Riley, what do you like about him so much?
Well, I think, like Antonio Cromartie when he was at Florida State, it's that unique size at the cornerback position. I mean, when you're at 6'1", almost 6'2", 210 pounds, you typically have more length and more size than your regular corners, and that's what he does. He's a physical press man technique guy who really does a great job of jamming wide receivers at the line without having to overextend himself. He's got long arms, and that goes a long way in the NFL, especially when you're in those cover 2 schemes. You have to cover 10, 12 yards down the field. That length helps you out in that coverage scheme. And like I said, he reminds me of Antonio Cromartie. Both had ACL injuries at Florida State, sat out a year and then came back even stronger, and that's what Xavier Rhodes did this year. I mean, you look at that kind of length, that's what an extra 2 to 3 inches armed length or height provides as a defensive back. So I think if he can continue to improve his man coverage, a lot of NFL teams run that, so he's going to be a huge asset for defensive coordinators with that size, strength, and length at the corner position.
Russ, every team's looking for cornerbacks because the NFL is becoming a pass-happy league. Where does he fit into the draft?
I think he fits in anywhere from about 10 to about 22. I mean, NFL teams love his length. He's got great hips for turning and running off the line and press coverage. And I think what impresses teams is for a tall corner, he can change directions and close explosively on plays in front of him. The one area I'll disagree with Riley, yes, he compares to Cromartie, but Rhodes is willing to hit. He's willing to come up and tackle guys. I don't think Cromartie's made a tackle in many years in the NFL.
That's actually a very good point. I was mainly going on the physical stature rather than the physicalness in the tackling game.
So Xavier Rhodes, again, another guy who could be that first player from the ACC taken in the draft. We're asking you, who do you think will be? Tweet us at the ACCDN. In some mocks, we've seen Rhodes, again, going in the top 12, like Russ just said. So maybe he's the guy. We're getting some tweets. Robert Lewis tweeted in. He thinks Tank. He thinks Tank's going first. Knowles fan clearly going hashtag Knowles, hashtag NFL. A blogger who does great work in the ACC, Jeffrey Fan, he tweeted us. He says Jonathan Cooper. Also, we've seen him going potentially early in the first round, top 15. And then TJ says, hey, if Ryan Nassib counts, I'm going with him. and again, Syracuse joins July 1st. We'll count it.
It's a hybrid. He kind of counts.
And Russ, you think he's the guy?
I do think he's the guy. If I can take him, I'll take him to be the first guy taken. I think he's a future Pro Bowl quarterback.
All right, so that's the pick. Ryan Nassib, again, he's been very impressive at Syracuse. The question is, where does he grow from here? Hey, let's do some quick trivia, by the way, while we're thinking of it. Can any of us think of quickly the number 1 pick? The only ACC's only had one number 1 pick ever. I'm going to give Riley's pausing. It's Mario Williams from NC State, the only ACC guy to be the number 1 overall pick in the draft. It was 2006. Remember at the time it was a controversial pick because many people felt like the Houston Texans should take Reggie Bush instead. NC State star Turned out to be an All-Pro twice. He's had more than 60 career sacks, so I'd say he's proven himself, no doubt about it. The best draft that year, by the way, was just a huge year for the ACC. Easily the best draft ever for the conference. 20% of all the players drafted that year were from the ACC, including 12 in the first round. Virginia Tech alone had 9 guys. That 12 players taken in the first round, that's a record. Any conference ever in the NFL draft, 12 first-round picks. Of the 51 ACC players taken, 9 were linebackers. So that was a huge year, led off by Mario Williams and NC State. All right, guys, let's get some predictions here. First off, I want to know, who is the first ACC guy off the board? Riley, who do you think?
I'm going Jonathan Cooper. I mean, Russ, I agree with what Russ said about that teams don't exactly need guards compared to tackles. I just think he's too good, too solid of a player for teams to pass up. I think all it takes is one. Someone's going to fall in love with him early on and take him off the board.
All right, Russ, who's your pick? First guy.
Well, if Nassib counts, I would take him. But if not, then I would go with Sylvester Williams, the big defensive tackle out of North Carolina. I think he's going to be chosen very highly because of his size, athleticism combination.
All right, let's talk about who might be a surprise and who sneaks into the first round maybe that we're not talking about, Riley.
I think it's E.J. Manuel. I think when he gets the opportunity to sit down in front of these coaches, get on the whiteboard, go through defensive coverage, go through schemes, run blocking, I think he's the one that's going to impress guys more rather than just his film. So I think E.J. Manuel is going to be kind of the sleeper for me.
Russ, what are you hearing? Who might sneak into the first round from the ACC?
I think DeAndre Hopkins has a real good chance. I mean, the reality is there are questions about a lot of receivers this year. He's a guy that makes plays. There are no concerns about his hands, no concerns about his speed. I think a lot of teams are going to take him over some of the more publicized receivers because he's a more sure fit starter early in his career.
Russ, last thing, is there a guy who might surprise us, maybe a second pick and beyond, who makes an immediate impact?
I think not Menlik Watson. I'm sorry, Giovanni Bernard is a guy who, in that second or third round, when he gets taken, he's going to make a big impact as a rookie. I think both as a returner and catching pass out of the backfield, this guy's going to be a dynamic guy, put up a lot of yardage as a rookie.
I like that pick, but I'm gonna go with Bjorn Warner. I think he'll get taken early, but I think he'll also make an impact early on, just from the fact that he's so raw. He's got that passion, and once he gets under a coaching staff that really puts him in the right position to make plays, I will not be surprised if you see Bjorn Warner in the Pro Bowl his first year.
I want to thank Russ Lande from the National Football Post and Junior Scouting. Riley, of course, thank you for being here as well. We'll see what happens Thursday night. Riley, Russ, and myself, we will be back here Friday on ACC Live to break down the picks from round 1 and look ahead to that second day of the NFL Draft. Which guys could go Friday or Saturday? It's only on the ACC Digital Network, brought to you by Ruby Tuesday.